Does this sound familiar? You wake up and reach for your phone before you've even fully opened your eyes. Next thing you know, you're scrolling through social media, checking emails, and the day has begun without a moment of personal connection or purposeful alignment. You're stuck in the rut of your life, just going through the motions, feeling slowly but surely more disconnected and overwhelmed each day. What if there was a way to break this cycle? To find a balance where happiness, health, and harmony are part of your daily life? Well, today's episode is exactly where you need to be. Welcome to We Are Already Free, the podcast helping down-to-earth seekers to release fear, find purpose, and reconnect with joy and wonder. I'm your host, Nathan Maingard, and it's an honor to be here with you today. When you hear the words, "we are already free," what comes up for you?
Acceptance.
The shift in awareness.
Human beings are so powerful.
There's so much more.
Everything is love behind it.
Breaking the chains of your own mind.
That which remains.
Nature.
Getting out of the matrix.
We're sitting on the treasure and it's already unlocked.
We are already free.
You're free.
You are a walking map.
Have always been free.
You are always free, already free.
We are already free.
We have an incredible guest, Pavel Stuchlik, also known as Noa Aon, a husband and father who has transformed his life from burnout to thriving through a unique blend of ancient wisdom and modern biohacking. Pavel's journey from a professional cyclist to a holistic wellness expert is nothing short of inspiring. He's mastered practices like darkness retreats and breathwork, integrating them into cutting-edge wellness technology. In today's episode, we dive into Pavel's insights on how to reconnect with your true self and achieve a balanced, fulfilling life. You do not want to miss this journey towards unlocking happiness, health, and harmony with Noa Aon. And before we dive into today's life-changing conversation, I've got something special to share with you. If you're feeling the slow drain of those tech-driven, disconnected mornings, I've got just the thing. It's my 5-day morning practice challenge, designed to help you transform your mornings and reconnect with your inner being. Just like Pavel's practices, this challenge is about starting your day with intention, balance, and purpose. Imagine waking up feeling calm, aligned, and excited to live the day ahead with happiness, health, and harmony. Are you ready to make that change? Join the challenge at the link in the show notes of your podcast app and begin your journey towards a more fulfilling morning routine today. And now please enjoy this heart-opening and super empowering episode with Pavel Stuchlik of Noa Aon. Your bio is one of the coolest, craziest, most amazing bios I think I've ever seen. And it's inspiring for me as well. I'm in this place and I have been in this journey of transformation for some years, but I'm struggling, man. Like, I'll be honest. I go up and I come down and I feel like I've learned so much and I'm taking care of myself. I'm doing ice baths and breath work and then I lose it all again. I'm really interested in seeing how you have really transformed yourself so deeply that you can step out, because the work that you're doing in the world is the work that I'm feeling called into. I know that I'm being called into as a leader and as a servant, one who leads and serves through leading. But it's a big role to take on. There's a lot of responsibility in that. There's a lot of energy to hold and to navigate and to make sure that it's in integrity and that it's aligned and it's not just another ego trip. And so you've obviously been through a huge amount that's allowed you to get to this place where you're kind of the leader of a movement around the world, helping lots and lots of people to have happiness, health, and harmony, as you say. And so could you share how is it in this moment? And then we can go backwards into the journey as well. But like, how do you hold the kind of the bigness of what it is that you're doing in the world right now?
Thank you. It's so interesting because I have never felt so grateful in my life as I feel today. And there is not a day that I don't thank for not having all the pain anymore. And I came out of like a 2 to 3 year brutal period where I just had to shave everything off. And so what's so amazing, like I never thought that this would be possible to begin with. And I wasn't worthy. I didn't feel the worth for myself enough that this could be possible. But yet I kept on going in and I kept on looking in. And the minute that the next obstacle showed up, I just knew that this is going to be over one day. That was just like a part of me that believed in all of the books I've read and all of the people I've met and all of the trainings I went through, because there was always piece of me was like, is this for real? Like there's all these spiritual teachings that are telling you about love and about about unity and about all of these concepts, which I love, but I didn't embody it and I didn't feel it until very recent. And so I truly think that we are on this brisk of a new moment, of a new era in our life. And I can't tell you enough, city to city, country to country we go to, we find people that are like us, that are aligned, that are doing the work, that are sick and tired of following the old societal norm. And it's just mesmerizing that like we're doing this and you're doing this. All of us are doing this. And yes, there's going to be residual that we have to face, that we have to go through. And the first thing that came to me for you, Nathan, is I had a similar roadblock where I was already really healthy and looking in, but it came out that it was a karmic issue that I went through. And then I did this soul realignment thing with Tatum, who is one of my teachers that I work with on a weekly basis. And essentially, she found a life like 16 lifetimes ago that I caused all of these issues that kept on coming back to this lifetime. And I could not find the choices that I made in this lifetime to pair up with the consequences that I'm seeing, right? Because life is about choices and consequences. And so I hit a roadblock, and it was with my former wife that it was the most prominent. And then I had these cycles that every once in a while, I would have depression, low confidence. I would feel doubts like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Am I really truly the one that's meant to be doing this? And the same set of like emotional, mental, physical patterns would show up at the same or similar times. And when I cleared this, it literally was gone. And so sometimes things are on the energetic or all the time, they start with the energetic. And then they also go back in lifetimes that we don't have the conscious memory of today.
Yeah, that's in some ways it's reassuring. And that's also like, oh, what? There's even past lives I have to deal with. This life is enough to deal with. You've done some pretty crazy, I say crazy, but very courageous, I'll put it more that way, but very out there by our society standards things. Like one of the things you've done is that you did 40 days in total darkness with no food. And I can't even imagine what that would have been like, but I'm curious, how did that impact your perspectives on personal transformation, on leadership, on the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, it transformed my whole life 360. And so the first time I went was about 8 years ago. And back then I was a busy entrepreneur and wanting to build all of these Orange Theory fitness locations, which is a group personalized fitness that I was heavily involved in. And so I had all of these like goals and how I'm going to scale this. And yet I was burned out, tired, and unhappy with doing what I was doing. So I went into Thailand and essentially met Jas Muhin, who is breatharian. She's solely nourished by prana for the past 25 years. And I was so intrigued by the reset of it, the 10 days, that I essentially gave my cell phone away. I dropped into my room and then there I was. And at first it was pretty brutal up until about day 7 because of your monkey brain. It just like doesn't shut up. It's not the food that you're not eating. It's really the emotional and mental attachments that we are obsessed by in a lot of ways. And I think it was like day 5, I started dreaming of lamb chops. I like literally could not put lamb chops out of my sight. And I was like, stop following me, go away. It was hilarious, but also annoying. And she literally has to teach you these meditations on how to turn off the lights, because you see so much lights because your pineal gland clears out. And so your DMTs just start massively pumping into your brain. And so day 7, I start crying, and I went into this complete state of bliss. And for the first time in my life, I have touched myself for who I am, not for what I'm being told and not for who I am not. And in that moment, I got this realization. And that's, by the way, where Noa Aon came about. Noa means movement. Aon is all or none. And it symbolizes duality. I played my whole life ping pong, highs and lows and good days and bad days. And I was so sick and tired of these up and downs that I knew there is another way. And that's in the center. That's coming back into that happiness, health, and harmony. And I walked out of there and the message was clear. Sell whatever you've got, learn how to DJ, learn how to produce music, because that was my passion and I wanted to follow that. Then by then I was about maybe 5-8 years in of putting myself through these experiences. And so the message was, you got to share this. So that's what later on we started doing workshops, retreats, immersive experiences that we're doing today. And the legacy was, how do I make means with this movement, with living in service? And this is where I really failed. Within 2 years, I lost everything. All of the means that I made up until then, it was completely stripped away. And that was my former wife. That was my former business partnerships, ideas of life, thoughts. Every single thing was completely stripped down to zero. And it was integrity thing. You mentioned it at the beginning. I wasn't fully integrated in what I was saying. And so long story short, darkroom is freaking monster. It's the most powerful thing to me that I've ever done because it's so healing. And I'm going again next month.
Wow. How long are you going for?
So it's the 5th time, 10 days. So it's always same time frame.
Okay.
And essentially it became my yearly reset. So it's for me when I drop in, rejuvenate, and get more insights for the following year.
Amazing. Yeah, there's actually a darkness retreat, although I think you do eat. So that, because that would be a slightly different intense experience. But there's a darkness retreat that's opened up in South Africa. And actually, I had a darkness retreat facilitator, Scott Berman, who does the Sky Cave retreats in America. He was on the podcast a while ago, and it's calling me for sure. It's like, yeah, there's so much fear around it, but I think that's so much of who I am or who I think I am is associated around the things I do or the things I don't do, et cetera, et cetera. And I realized like I really would like to give myself a chance to let that all go and actually just when I can't do anything, when there's nothing that I can actually do to distract myself from just being with myself, what's going to come out. I'm very interested to experience that. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
No, absolutely. I call it the process of unhooking, by the way, because if we don't unhook ourselves from this world in a cyclical way, then we're constantly living somebody else's life, somebody else's dreams, and somebody else's agenda. Now, this might not apply to you, but a traditional person, let's say in a marriage or that has a kids and family, they're bounded or hooked into that particular lifestyle because everything around them keeps on pulling them and steering them from that pathway. Now, what I mean by this process of unhooking is that basically once a day, the first hour of the day, I actually just did it before our call, I spend time with just myself. I do my breathwork, meditation, morning routine. I visualize the day to know what's coming. How do I want to show up? And I use it as the golden hour to be just with myself, just with my thoughts. Once a week, I spend full day completely on my own, unhooked from everybody, from the digital world. I digitally fast. So that way, again, I can retract back into the inner world because everything starts from inside out and most people live outside in. And then essentially once a month, I spend 4 days completely off, which if you've ever been to a vacation from the busy schedule, it takes about 3 days for the nervous system just to chill because we constantly want to be on our phone and do from the active life that we live. And then once a year, I spend 10 days in darkness. And then it's usually 10 to 15 days completely unhooked from the world. So that way I can realign where am I going, what is happening, and who am I becoming in this process. And in this way, I don't lose myself in the doing, in this societal norm. And what I've noticed, the first time I went to darkroom, I was completely lost in the societal norm. You know what I mean? So basically, when the first time I did that, I changed my life 360. But in the second, third, fourth time, it was just some minor adjustments, minor tweaks, because I was going on that same path. And that's really what silence and quiet and pause or unhooking will do for your life.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have a question that comes up for me is like, how would that work for a family person, someone who is a husband or a wife and has children? And like, how does that tie into functioning in a family or in a community setting to take that much time for oneself? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
That oneself becomes way greater self than ever before. So that's something that number one, what's important is that when you do this, you have to have a partner that understands this, right? So I'm fortunate enough to have a magical wife that understands that if I don't do it, I am not the person that she wants to be around to begin with. And so once she sees the difference of when I have this time, and by the way, she needs the same, right? So it goes both ways. And it's also about just the very strong boundaries and setting up non-negotiables, because we are living our life, not anybody else's life, right? We are complete on the inside and we can then share it on the outside. But without the completion of who and what we are and deciding who and what we are, because it's all about those choices, we are constantly going to be wishing one day that our dreams are fulfilled instead of living the dreams every single day. And so that's literally what I'm doing today. Like, if you were to ask me, what would I change? Like, I am exactly living the life that I'm choosing to live. And I'm so fluttered by it. And we even say it with my wife constantly, because we're literally living a dream. And from this place of gratitude, from this place of just appreciation for what we were able to do, because we also know and see how hard it was to get here, because it was a very hard rodeo to shave off all of this. But now it's worth it every time. And I have 3 kids and a wife. They all know. I sometimes even include them. I sometimes tell them, what you do that as well, and this is what it's for. So that way they also understand how important their energy is. I also teach them how to claim their energy. So it's so funny. Actually, we went to it was like one of those jumping trampoline places this weekend with my kiddos. And literally my little son, that's 7 years old, he comes to me like as I'm sitting and he's like, "Dad, don't forget to put pyramid around you. There's a lot of people." And so like my kid is telling me to put a pyramid around my field to protect my energy from all the people that we're surrounded with. Wow. So it becomes a lifestyle.
I love that. That's so cool, man. Thank you for sharing that story. I think for a lot of people, there's this idea that, oh, this guy must be single and young and just having fun and he doesn't have all these responsibilities. But here you are, father, husband, and you're still operating at a level that is just incredible. The next question I have is about this way that you bring together these different things, integrating the ancient wisdoms, but also modern science and modern technology. As a DJ, you're using very modern technology. And I'm curious how you balance these, what could almost be contrasting, non-inclusive, different styles of approaching the world. How can you integrate them? And there's just an extra piece here for me. One of the things that I wrestle with is how our whole society is built a bit, speaking of a pyramid, like a pyramid, so that for me to be able to be talking to you on a computer right now, there have to be slaves in the Congo who are mining lithium-ion batteries. And by the same token, any of our devices, it's all been extractive. It's all been taken from the earth in ways that is causing massive harm. And in fact, like for us to fly across the world, there has to be someone who's willing to work as the guy in front of the airplane, getting paid minimum wage to help us out there. And there seems to be this inequality built into the system as it is right now. And even though we may be doing breathwork and dancing and feeling bliss and having a good time and yay, life is beautiful, but it's built on the backs of those who have to work. And I live in South Africa, so I see it every day that sort of my life is built on having that there are people who work on the roads who get paid, they'll make in a month what I could make in a day, or even bigger differences. And yeah, I'm just curious for your thoughts of bringing together these ancient wisdom, modern technologies, and how to balance those inequalities that are intrinsic in the system we live in.
It's so funny because when it comes to inequalities, this is something that I've struggled with my entire business career. I've always felt so unright that there's me, right? That's like leading this up and then everybody else is having whatever fee. But it's at the same time, when I spend too much time in worrying this, it always led back to consciousness expansion. And this is, by the way, why, now when I'm deciding like, how do I spend time and what projects do I take? I constantly choose whatever will expand the consciousness to the furthest way is going to make the shift that we're seeking in this world. Because what I've noticed, everybody is born in a perfect situation. So as imperfect, as hard as it sometimes might seem, these souls have chosen this prior to coming into this earth to learn through this and to learn through this specific way. And as much as it's really not okay in the way our society works, it's also by design as part of the evolution that we are all unfolding. Now, more people that are woke from the places that are actually fortunate enough to be able to come to these sessions and workshops, more people start thinking different. And I'll give you an example. I work a lot with CEOs and organizations, billionaires, like really top level people, which I didn't want to at first. Like my whole thing was about being inclusive to anyone. But what I've noticed is that one person that maybe have thousands of employees will then slowly start making these shifts towards everyone and will also start thinking differently. So it triggers that whole sequence for everyone. And so I truly believe in the next 10 years, we're going to see some major shifts. We've already seen it. If you think about before COVID and after COVID, how much more people are open to learn, to educate, to even meditate, to understand that like that's the portion of our life. Like that was 10 years ago unheard of. Like I used to hide my meditations from people because I would be the weird one that's, what the hell are you doing? But now it's going to be a new societal norm. Like, what do you mean? You don't do ice baths? You're not consciously evolving your physical body and you're not here for health span? And so, this is all happening right now. And it's so beautiful to see that. And what I've also noticed a lot of times when people are in distressed situations, there is not really time for them yet to seek spirituality, because until we help fulfill their basic needs, it's going to be a really secondary thought. Now, at the same time, though, it shouldn't be, because I can tell you this, I was wealthy and I was also completely broke. And when I lost everything, all of my accounts were frozen. Like literally, I woke up one day, I've got 2 kids, and I was fasting for days at a time to feed them because how bad our finances got in that stage. And what saved me was my breath. What saved me was my mental agility for that there is going to be a better time ahead of us if I look at this not from a place of victimhood, but rather, what is this teaching me? What is this showing me? And this really led me that we're living in these cycles. We've got a microcycles that everyone is responsible for. That's our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual bodies, through which we have a sequence of thoughts, emotions, and different physical health issues that might come up because of coming from the spiritual. But I call this the me, the individual consciousness that everybody can affect in their own hands. Then you've got the we, which is the collective consciousness. And this is when you start getting into the groups of people, right? Like as much as we're one, we're also of a whole group. Let's say it's a city, let's say it's an organization. We then combine our energies in one. And that's a more of a macro cycle or a little bit mid cycle, so to speak. And then we go through lessons as a whole, right? As a country goes through different repairment at a time. And then you've got the B, which I call the supra consciousness. And it's part of this model, me, we, be, which I teach. It's on the process of the journey through self-transformation. And when you look at the B, it's the supra consciousness. And the best way to explain this is if the universe was created 13.5 billion years ago, how did we get here? We're such a little drop of a dot in this vast ocean, but yet each and every drop affects the ocean. Does that make sense? So then we have all of these other cycles, like there could be a meteorites, they could be ice age, right? Like there are things that we like rarely can do something about because we're off this bigger thing. And universe keeps on zooming out, right? Then you can look at it from universes, then you can look at it from star systems. And I don't even go there because that's not something we're meant to comprehend with our limited mind. And so to answer your question in simplicity, I go back into what can I do? What can I do on every single day? What are my decisions? What are my choices? What are my thoughts? How do I affect these other people? And through gratitude, through meditation, I do this gratitude for the people that pick up our trash, for the people that, are doing all of this service, because we must bring this massive gratitude so they are supported just like we are in their own way, in their own time, in their perfect place. But totally hear you and struggle with it myself. But the only person that can change it is ourselves within the environment that we are exposed to.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. There's if I continue to focus on what is wrong or what's out there, it's the same thing. It's then I'm giving my energy away to things that I actually can't control directly. I can't go and make every street sweeper different. And that's also an arrogance to think that I would know what they need more than what they've already got. And that's also something in that. And I see sometimes I'll meet someone who's working in an environment where I would think, oh, that'd be difficult. They're at a little corner shop cafe working behind the counter, and yet something about them is just so alight and they're so present and so joyful. And I'm reminded that actually there is always a choice. The freedom is the choice to say, this is my life and I choose this life, and to be in joy with that. So yeah, that comes up for me for sure. And yeah, I'm curious because you also then talk about, you've got your triple H effect, your happiness, health, and harmony. And so how can anyone listening to this, especially those who are called forward in this time, which many of my listeners are, as empaths, highly sensitive people who never fitted into the society because we've always been too sensitive for it to be able to completely buy the story of our modern society. And so these people now are being called forward to be these transformational leaders. How can these people cultivate this in their lives, especially in challenging times, like you were saying, when the money's running out and there's 2 kids to feed, etc.? How can you nourish and nurture happiness, health, and harmony?
So life gives us constant feedback. We have a neurofeedback, we have biofeedback, but we also have a life feedback, or whatever we call this. Now, there is no better feedback than your current present life that constantly shows you back what you are resonating, what you are reflecting. And based on what it's showing you is the things that you have to face, so that way you can be a greater leader. Now, in this process, I use a 4-step process to face these different cycles, because without us, so let's say that right after the first time I went to darkroom, I went all into spirituality, right? Like I went from this like societal norm all the way to just being spiritual and denying money, right? Like what I started doing was like, I don't want it. Like I don't want this evil and all of that. And in a lot of spiritual communities, this is what happens. We cause this effect that money is evil, money or abundance is evil, and people with money are evil. But we came here to experience abundance, health, happiness, love on every single level. And we did not come here to learn from the gutter. And it's actually funny because the people that are at these highest rankings, they're actually very evolved in a lot of ways. And they understand the power of control. They understand the power of deception. Because if you look at it, one of the biggest things you have to look at is what is true love and what is deception. And by the way, the question I always ask, what would love do now whenever I'm deciding? Because through questioning, you're going to receive answers. Now, let's go into these phases. So step 1, there is this wake up phase where you bring up to the surface those things that don't work. Now, I apply this exactly to the Me, We, Be model. And so if you want to do just a quick self-assessment, 0 to 10, 0, you're at the lowest, 10, you are at your best. And what I usually do, and I do this on my weekly basis, by the way, in my process of unhooking. So step 1, you simply look at your physical health. So where is your body? 0 to 10. How's your sleep? How's your nutrition? How's your diet? How's your energy? Some of the most prominent things, just ask your body, give me a number. When you get the number, write it down, then move into your mind. Mind is the mental thoughts. Now, I used to think I wasn't good enough. I can't, I won't. I had all of this negative Nelly inside of my head. And when I'm talking about mind, I'm talking about that egoic part, which we all need, right? Some people call it monkey brain, small self, many different terms. It's the survival mechanism that learns from the past and projects into the future. Now, that is programmable, which is a good thing. And if your mind constantly thinks something negative about you and about another, write those thoughts down. This is what I did. I wrote them down, I scratch it, and I rewrote them, just like if I was writing a new software or new music, new song. Now, mind is the software, body is the hardware. Whatever software does, body follows. And that's what mind-body connection means, is that we directly receive a response through maybe little shakes, maybe there's a little twitches, inches, like there's going to be a vivid feedback when you start speaking to your body. The best way to test this, just keep on saying to your body how much you love it. Just like literally look at yourself and just like, love you, I love you, my body, and thank you, until you literally start feeling little flutters, a little bit of energy. It will eventually happen, even if you are really disconnected. So mind is the second one, 0 to 10, based on what your mental state is, and just write down the number so you know where you at. The next one is emotions. Emotions is what makes this life feel real. And if we have constantly jealousy, fear, apathy is the lowest state of emotions. It's the scariest one to be in because that's when we don't care. But it also goes for fear. It goes for just the whole sequence of emotions that we have. Now, if any of them are negative, work with them. You got to look in what caused them. And this is really looking back in traumas, forgiving yourself, accepting yourself. I had to do so much of this because I was so hard on myself. And I believe so many of us are. If we don't wake up on time, if we don't do this regimen thing, it's the old patriarchal way of doing things, that systematic approach. We must bring more of that joy, playfulness, and excitement, more of that feminine side so we can balance it out. So third one is emotions, just 0 to 10, rate your emotions. And then the fourth one is your spiritual body. Some people call it the higher self, the realized self. I like to call it the original source energy that gives you life when you're born, that feeds the life when you're alive, and then will go back to oneness when we die. And this communicates with the psychics, and it communicates with us with 4 ways. There's inner hearing, which is the little whispers. It's not the loud monkey brain. It's the whispers telling you, stop drinking alcohol, start working out, read a book. It's the little whispers that always have your back. Then you've got your inner seeing. This is people that are the visionaries of the world, psychics that are really see things before they happen. Or in lucid dreaming, we a lot of times get a little dump of information. Some people also see colors. So that's your inner seeing. Then you've got your inner knowing, which is your intuition. And I always like to say, when you think, you don't know. When you don't think, which allows you to know when when things happen, or you knew you shouldn't have gone to the party. It's in your bones. It's your intuitive self speaking out loud. And then you've got your inner feeling, which is the empaths of the world that comes from your solar plexus. It extends into your hands. And essentially, these 4 ways of communicating through our higher self can be strengthened if we just acknowledge it. So thank you, I heard that. Thank you, I saw that. And the key is what you're going to do about that. Because I also used to not believe in this, but then that voice started becoming louder and louder. And then it integrated with my monkey brain. And that's what people mean by embodying enlightenment, the enlightened part of us that's already enlightened in our physical daily routines that we are embarking on. And so 0 to 10, your spiritual body, how's your connection? How are these senses? And then we move into the we. So that's your relationships. So quickly just ask yourself, what are the top 5 people I spend the most time with? Maybe you can even imagine them looking at you from the side. And then just ask, are they bringing the best of me? And am I bringing the best of them? Or is there any tweaks that I have to make? Or do I need to replace them? Because I had to replace a lot of these relationships as well. And 0 to 10, quality of your relationships. And then environment. So 0 to 10. And when I'm talking about environment, it's the quality, your water quality, air quality, paint. Is there mold in your house? What clothes are you wearing? Everything from the outside that affects the inside. And just put 0 to 10. Now, the final one in this is your career. I call it the life mission or purpose or legacy, whatever you call it. How fulfilled, satisfied, how much on your purpose are you truly feeling? And also, how much are you receiving, right? Because you're supposed to receive a very good chunk of income when you are fully aligned. And that's what happened for me. At first, I went totally broke. I was tired. I was like, what is this spiritual thing? Like, this is ridiculous. But then I finally faced these things. I looked into my mind, body, emotions, relationships, and then I shaved the ones that didn't work. And this is why that first wake up phase is so important. So you bring it up to the surface. The second phase is cleaning up. So this is when you let go of the negative thoughts, let go of the negative people. You detox your body so that way you can power up, which is the third phase. And this is when you go into offense. This is when you supplement, let's say, vitamins if you are deficient on your body. This is when you bring new relationships, new ideas, new thoughts. You go into offense. You take charge of this life. And then the final phase is resting up, which is essentially the time that you take time with yourself. And I said it at the beginning, the process of unhooking, the daily, weekly, monthly, yearly reassessment, redrop-ins. And one thing that's important to know, I'm not master at anything. The minute that we think we've mastered something, the whole next sequence of things will come. And so I master at welcoming change, welcoming situations, because now I know to look in, not look out. And when you look in, it will lift up to the new, greatest version that you've ever had about yourself. And when you keep on rising this, the bar goes really high. And that's why we're with my wife like, oh my gosh, like how high is this gonna like go? This is like amazing. But as you can see, like we don't even until today feel like, is this like for real? You know?
Yeah, I hear you, man. That's beautiful. I love just hearing your passion as well, and can feel the sincerity and the authenticity of what you're sharing. It really means a lot to hear. And I'm sure that anyone listening is getting a lot out of this as well. We've covered some really good ground here. And I think the main thing I want to ask is that if someone wants to take the next step, because people listening could be in many different places in their lives right now. So I suppose, where would they find you? What is it that you're doing? What is a good starting point to engage more with the work that you're doing in the world? And yeah, just anything you'd want to share with someone who wants to take that next step in their own lives.
Yes, absolutely. So what we'll do, we'll give to everyone an on-demand library access. So if you look at what we do, we've got a digital courses and on-demand library. We use the on-demand library as a recap for all of our events. So we always give people access to it. So that way they can actually do daily drops. And what I would like to ask from your audience is, can you commit that the next 30 days, you spend the first hour of your day, the golden hour, with yourself? And maybe you listen to any of these recordings, and maybe you just do your own practice. That's whatever, ultimately, it's whatever you feel called to, because that's your path. And then we'll send the link in the description. So that way you will have the access to that. And then when it comes to events, so we do about 100 to 150 events a year all across the world, from retreats, workshops, immersive experiences. And essentially, we do this for one big mission, and that is to unify the world, one person at a time, through these tools. And essentially, then we've got our e-commerce platform. It's for consciousness expansion. So all of our products are to help consciousness expansion. And that's when we mingle technologies to help us get into a present moment in this fast-paced life. And we'll share all of that. And our website is noaaon.com, NOAAON.com.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I just love the work you're doing. And the final question, which I love to ask everybody, is when you hear the words, "we are already free," what does that bring up for you?
It brings up a real life situation. It brings up, like, I think we discussed this a little bit, like when we go into events in any city, any country, people are realizing their powers. People are rising. And so it's the most magical time to be alive. And I think that's why all of our souls have chosen to come here, because it's such a crazy shift. Because if you look 200 years ago, I mean, we were savages, like literally, like it's crazy if you just, or 100 years ago, like World War II, like it's unbelievable, like what we were able to do back then, like majority of the world would not bound to this anymore. And so it's a huge leap, and we are free.
Thank you for the work that you're doing, Pavel. And yeah, I just really appreciate your invitation through the embodiment of your own practices and your own work and the service that you're doing in the world now, that the invitation is to me and to all of us to continue going inward, and so that we can be of service on the outside. So again, thank you so much for coming on We Are Already Free. I wish you well, and I hope to welcome you back again sometime soon.
Thank you so much also for what you're doing on behalf of everyone.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of We Are Already Free. I hope you found as much inspiration and practical insight as I did from my chat with Pavel Stuchlik, also known as Noa Aon. We've explored how integrating ancient wisdom with modern biohacking can lead us to a life of happiness, health, and harmony. Remember, Pavel's journey shows us the power we each have to heal and transform. a powerful reminder of the importance of holistic wellness practices like breathwork and darkness retreats in transforming our lives. He's reminded us that starting our day with intention and connection with our true selves can make a massive difference. Now imagine for a moment that you've created something incredibly important and precious to you. You've poured countless hours of love, sweat, tears, and passion into this creation. Maybe it's a poem or a song or a painting or even a podcast episode. You wake up one day and, after your morning practice, of course, you check your emails and oh my gosh, there's a new message that blows your heart wide open. Someone has taken the time to write you a personal thank you for your creation. Suddenly you feel deeply seen and the love overflows from your heart. All that hard work, all that unseen effort has gone out into the world and changed someone's life for the better, and they've taken the time to say thank you. Why am I telling you this story? Because I would love you to take the next minute to write me a podcast review on Apple Podcasts. It takes such a short moment of your time that it has the massive impact of breaking my heart wide open and reminding me that I'm not the only one who finds infinite value in these vulnerable chats. Your words not only encourage me, but also help others to discover the show. So please head over to alreadyfree.me/review to get started or check the show notes. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. Stay connected, stay inspired, and please remember, we are already free.